Representative Pat Proctor retired as a lieutenant colonel. Colonel, full colonel. Okay. He started as an infantryman, enlisted, and rose to colonel. So that's a pretty big step. He is a candidate for Secretary of State, and he's chairman of the House Elections Committee. Many of us are very interested in elections. Chairman of the Joint Committee on Kansas Security. I think a lot of us are interested in security nowadays. And vice chair of the Special Committee on Campaign Contributions and Transparency. I'm interested in transparency. The Kansas Secretary of State is one of 4 offices defined in the Kansas Constitution and has the responsibility for administering elections, collecting certain records of Kansas businesses, and publishing official publications for the state of Kansas. Help me welcome Representative Pat Proctor.
So thank you very much, sir, for having me. Thank you, everybody, for having me. So my name is Pat Proctor. I serve the people of Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth in the Kansas House, and I serve all of you, as you heard, as the chairman of your House Elections Committee. And I'd be honored to continue to serve you as your Secretary of State, which is why I'm here. So politics was not my life plan. I spent 25 years in the Army. I was in Iraq twice, Afghanistan once. When I was retiring, I thought my plan was going to be to teach, which I do. When I'm not in the legislature, I teach at Wichita State in the Homeland Security program. So I come down here a day a week in the fall. And then I figured my wife would fill in the rest of it with our 2 restaurants. We have a restaurant in Leavenworth and a restaurant in Manhattan. And believe me, she keeps me plenty busy when I'm not on the campaign trail, which is why I'm campaigning so much. You know, I'm a late adopter Christian. I came to my faith in my early 20s, saved in my I think it was 23 when I got saved, and kind of the guy who mentored me when I was a new Christian, just starting out on my walk, used to tell me, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And so here I am in the politics, and so I ran for the State House to represent Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth because I wanted to bring jobs and opportunity back to Leavenworth, back to Kansas. Leavenworth, you know, I spent the whole day here in Wellington. I'm going to come back. This ain't the last time you're going to see me. But Leavenworth's a lot like Wellington in that it's an older town, an old downtown, and the population's decreasing. A lot of people leaving. And we live right next to the river. Y'all live right next to Oklahoma. We live right next to the river. So a lot of people are moving over to Missouri where it's cheaper to live because of the property taxes. And so I went in the legislature to work on that problem. And I have done some of that. I passed a bill called the Historic Kansas Act to encourage investment in our historic downtowns. Get those old buildings back into service with businesses in them. Me and my wife, that's kind of our side gig. We do a lot of that as well. And a lot of stuff to get people back in the workforce. We were just at the Economic Outlook conference in Wichita this morning. 61% labor participation rate in the state, which means that 39% of people 18 to 60 ain't working. They ain't even looking for a job. So you hear unemployment's 4%, that's the people looking for a job. 4% of the people looking for a job don't have a job, but 39% ain't even looking for a job. And especially among 18 to 25-year-olds, it's chronic. It's really chronic, and that's when you learn to get up on Monday morning and go to work, and you build those patterns in your life. Yeah. If we don't bring them people back in the economy, when I'm collecting Social Security, there ain't gonna be anybody to pay it. The young people working is what kind of keeps our country moving forward, keeps our country growing. So that's what I went to the legislature to work on. And then COVID hit. And I got a libertarian streak 2 miles wide, and it chapped my rear watching people just lay down and let the government walk all over them. Because, you know, I went to Iraq twice, Afghanistan once. Some of my friends didn't come home. Some of my friends came home severely injured, and they didn't do that so that Americans could just hand over their rights. And so I got very involved. You know, the last day of the session, 2020, I'm standing out there with 2,000 of my closest friends and a bullhorn, yelling at the governor to stop stomping all over our rights and demanding that the legislature do something to rein in the governor and you know, her excessive use of emergency powers to steal our rights. So when I got elected, they ask you, what do you want to do? You know, what committees do you want to be on? And I said what any legislator from Leavenworth would say. I said I want to be on the Military and Veterans Committee, and I want to be on the Corrections Committee, because that's what we do in Leavenworth. Army and prisons, that's what we do in Leavenworth. And they put me on the Elections Committee. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to be on the Elections Committee, I'm going to know everything there is to know about elections. And so I made an appointment with Secretary of State's office with their elections team. And I spent the whole day there with his elections team, great professionals. They just went soup to nuts through elections, everything there was to know about elections, just feeding my head. But the whole time I was in there, my phone was just blowing up. And, you know, just call after call, text after text. I wasn't going to be rude, because, you know, how often am I going to have all these great professionals in a room all feeding my head, you know? So I sort of put my phone in my pocket and tried to just, you know, listen to them. But when we got done, I step out there on the sidewalk in front of Memorial Hall. I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm standing out there on the sidewalk. In front of me is the State House that I'm getting ready to get sworn into the next week. And I looked down at my phone. And the day that I had been in there learning everything there was to learn about elections was January 6, 2021. And so while I'd been in there learning everything there was to learn about elections, everything that had happened in Washington, D.C. had happened. And it just fell on me like a ton of bricks. There you go again. You know, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. I had all these ideas about what I was going to be doing in the legislature, but the reason the Lord had put it in front of me was because he wanted me working on this problem of voter confidence. You know, like I said, I spent 25 years in the Army. I've been a lot of places where folks no longer believe in the ballot box, and they no longer believe in civil processes to solve their problems. What they do is what that fella did to Charlie Kirk a couple weeks ago. They pick up guns and they shoot people they disagree with. And I swore an oath when I put on the uniform, and it didn't end when I took off the uniform. I swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's right. And that's an oath to defend our way of life. That's an oath to defend our form of government. And so I feel like there's nothing more vital right now than restoring confidence in our elections. Amen. And so when 2 years later I came back, you know, I'm no longer a freshman, I'm a sophomore, and they asked me, what do you want to do in leadership? I said, I want to be the chairman of the Elections Committee. I didn't hesitate. I want to be the chairman of the Elections Committee, because this is such an important problem. And if I have the honor of your vote to serve you as the Secretary of State, I'm going to do exactly what I've been doing as a chairman of the Elections Committee. I'm going to be focused on restoring confidence in our elections. Yeah. I'm going to do that by increasing transparency, combating non-citizen voting, combating ballot harvesting, and fixing our voter rolls. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those, and then I'm going to open it up and answer questions as long as you want. So sometimes increase in transparency means passing a bill, and we've done a lot of that. This year, with the help of a lot of great legislators, we banned ranked choice voting, which is the opposite of transparency. Anything that requires 2 pages to explain how you counted the votes, that ain't transparent. So we banned that. We also, as you just heard, we banned the 3-day grace period. That's a bill I carried on the floor. So now election day is election day. We're not going to keep taking ballots for days after the election. But sometimes transparency just means having a conversation. Because, you know, we ain't been having a conversation about elections for the last 5 years. We've been shouting at each other about elections. And so my committee room, sometimes I'll tee up a bill I have absolutely no intention of passing, but I know it's going to bring people to my committee room because they're going to be interested in it. And I let them talk. You know, I let people share their concerns with us.
Yeah.
And I ain't going to shout you down. I might not agree with you. Some folks, they come in with concerns and I don't agree with them. And if I don't agree with them, I'm going to say, hey, did you know that we do this and we do this and we do this to combat that problem? And a lot of times they just didn't know that we do this, this, and this. And they'll say, wow, I didn't know that. Thank you. But I guarantee you, if I agree with their concern, the other side don't agree with their concern, and they're going to push back. But the point is we're having a conversation, and we're listening to people, and we're letting them share their concerns. And I'll tell you, if they have a concern, and it's a valid concern, I'm going to address it. We have to have the courage to address people's concerns, to fix vulnerabilities. Our elections, they're pretty good. But, you know, secure doesn't mean impregnable. Elections are run by people, and people make mistakes. People try to cheat. It happens. And so if there's a vulnerability, you know, I just told you, I'm a professor of Homeland Security. I'm the chairman of the Kansas Security Committee. Kind of the first principle of Homeland Security is you don't wait till after the plane blows up to stop the bomb from getting on the plane, right? So if you know there's a vulnerability and you can fix it before somebody exploits it, let's fix it. And so one of the vulnerabilities, one of the concerns that I hear over and over again, because I'm a chair of the elections committee, everybody shares their concerns with me. The one I hear over and over again is about non-citizen voting. People concerned that non-citizens are voting and diluting our vote. So I'm like, okay, well, let's find out let's dig into this. The first thing I found out, and it blew me away when I found out, did you know that nowhere in Kansas statute and nowhere in the Kansas Constitution does it actually say you have to be a citizen to vote? Because it was so obvious before 2024, nobody ever thought to write it down. Our Constitution says every citizen can vote. It doesn't say only citizens can vote. So I'm like, hey, that's low-hanging fruit. Yeah. And so I sponsored a constitutional amendment, a whole bunch, darn near enough to pass it, co-sponsored it. I carried it on the floor and we passed it. So on your ballot, yep, absolutely. On your ballot in November 2026, there's going to be a constitutional amendment question that just says very simply, only U.S. citizens can vote in the state of Kansas.
Amen.
I encourage you to vote for it, please. Yeah. I think it's a slam dunk. I think we got a pretty good shot at passing that one. But once you put it into statute, you got to be able to enforce it, right? Because a law that you don't enforce ain't a law. It's just a pleasant thought. And so I started digging some more. And did you know you don't actually have to be a citizen to get a real ID? You know, the whole country, we're all real ID states now because Donald Trump finally put his foot down and said, we're going to check and make sure you are who you say you are. And so you don't have to be a citizen to get a real ID. You have to prove you are who you say you are, and you have to prove that you're in the country legally. Now, proving you're in the country legally could mean you have a green card that you've had for 10 years, or it could mean that 2 years ago, you took out your phone and you filled out the CBP One app, and Joe Biden flew you from Nicaragua to Kansas. That's legal, right? And now you've got a driver's license. And so when I dug into it, I found out that 6 times over the last 15 years, a series of secretaries of state have been able to cajole the DMV into giving them a list of all of the non-citizens that have driver's licenses. And the last time that they did this was November of last year. And they took that list and they compared it to the voter rolls, and they found 80 non-citizens on our voter rolls, and they think 20 of them voted. And you can tell me, well, 20 ain't a big deal. My new senator for Leavenworth, who beat the Democrat incumbent, won by 31 votes out of 30,000. So don't tell me 20 votes ain't a big deal. And I could tell you stories tomorrow. I was in Liberal yesterday and I met a former county commissioner who beat the incumbent by 7 votes. 20 votes is a big deal, okay? And so we passed a law this year that's going to require that the DMV every quarter shares a list of all the non-citizens that they've given driver's licenses to, so we can check the voter rolls and we can scrub them and we can remove any non-citizens from our voter rolls.
Good job.
Another thing, and I'll talk more about that as much as you want. I'm sort of passionate about that one. So another thing that I've been working on is combating ballot harvesting. So there are groups out there, and this happens in my district. My district up in Leavenworth is a blue district, and I'm the first Republican reelected up there since 1994, and I just did the three-peat, and the Democrats hate it. And so I'm always a nationally targeted seats. National Democrats target my seat because they see it on paper as vulnerable. And out-of-state nonprofits, they use AI and machine learning and big data, and they find voters in my district that they never vote, but if they did vote, they'd vote Democrat. And then they send them ballot request after mail-in ballot request after mail-in ballot request, pre-filled out, until they finally give up and send in one. And then it's public record who's requested a ballot. So they know who they sent a ballot request to, who's requested a ballot. And like clockwork, 18 days before the election, after the mail-in ballot's been mailed out and it's in the mailbox, all of a sudden in my district there's all these college kids that I've never seen before, and they're all knocking the doors I don't knock, because it's Democrats that never vote. Why would I knock on their door? But they know that that person requested a ballot, and they show up at their door, they knock on the door, say, hey, I think there's something in your mailbox. Holy cow, it's a ballot. Would you like me to help you fill it out? Would you like me to turn it in? I won my first re-election, 2 elections ago, by 144 votes. I guarantee you they did it. If they had done it 144 more times, I wouldn't have been back. And so we've done a couple of things to combat this. The first thing we did was signature verification. And we're fighting that in court, and we're going to try to, I've got a bill, I'm going to try to strengthen it this coming session to make it even more harder to overturn. We limited the number of ballots that somebody can turn in that ain't their own, so that they got to send more college kids to those districts to flip them. And then we also outlawed pre-filled out ballot requests. And they sued us on that one too. There's this group, they hate when I call them this, so I call them this all the time, the Axis of Ballot Harvesting, the ACLU, the League of Women Voters, Loud Light, Appleseed. Every time we pass a law to try to make it harder to ballot harvest, they sue us. And so I got to thinking, how the heck are they getting all the money to sue us all the time? And it turns out there's a loophole in the law that says if you're a nonprofit, supposedly nonpartisan, you can rake in millions of dollars from George Soros and foreign billionaires, people outside the country that ain't even citizens, and you can use it to sue us, but you can also use it to flip constitutional amendment campaigns. So there's a law. If I'm running for dog catcher or I'm running for President of the United States, I can't take a cent from a foreign billionaire. But if I'm campaigning, vote no on valuing them both, I can take millions. ACLU, they were hiding behind this tag, Kansans for Constitutional Freedom, but it was ACLU. They spent $11 million on the Vote No campaign. At least, this is what I was able to find, at least 1.6 million of those dollars came from a Swiss billionaire who doesn't even live in this country through the shadow nonprofit called Arabella. And so this year, we passed a law that says you cannot use foreign money in our elections, whether it's for a candidate or for a constitutional amendment. And I know we hit the mark because they're suing me on that law too. So they can't use foreign money. Hopefully, it's in court now, but I think we're going to win on that one because I worked with the Secretary of State of Ohio, Secretary of State LaRose. He actually even testified in my committee in favor of the bill. We modeled it on his and kind of did tweaking for all the things they had trouble with in court, so I knew it was going to hold. The last thing I'll talk about, and I'm going to shut up and answering questions you have, is cleaning up our voter rolls. I don't know how it is here in Sumner County, but when I'm knocking doors in Leavenworth County, I'm knocking with the voter rolls and I go to a door, on the voter rolls, it's the 2 people that live there now, the 2 people who lived there before them, the 2 people who lived there before them, and maybe a few of them folks are dead. Our voter rolls are a mess. And so my second year in the legislature, I sponsored and passed a bill to try to start to give clerks tools so they can clean up our voter rolls. And the first thing I passed, it was a law that says if you haven't had any voting activity in 4 years, the clerk can send out a notice. If it comes back unreturned or it doesn't come back, it starts a clock to take them off the voter rolls because they probably moved. And then the other thing that I did this year is we passed a law, it came through my committee, to if you can use the online obituaries to take dead people off, because a lot of people don't get the paper. Sorry, Bill. And a lot of people don't put obituaries in the paper because it costs money. And so this gives the clerks another tool to take dead people off. There's a lot more we can do. First of all, there's a great system already in place for this. So if you should lose your mind and move across the border there to Oklahoma, and you go get a driver's license over there, the DMV in Oklahoma sends a notice to Kansas DMV, says, hey, they got a driver's license over here, cancel their driver's license in Kansas. Why, oh why, can't the DMV then tell the Secretary of State's office, this person's moved to Oklahoma and has a driver's license there? The Secretary of State can tell the clerk, so the clerk can remove them from the voter rolls. Amen. Seems pretty common sense to me. Yeah. On dead people, they're already, with Donald Trump in office, we're already getting a lot of headway on this, okay? I just had a newsletter out today. They finally were getting cooperation from the Social Security Administration and from DHS. They're helping us find dead people and find non-citizens that are on our voter rolls and get them off. But something else we could do right now without waiting for the federal government. You know who knows for sure that you're dead when you die? Your credit card company and your bank, because they don't want to lend you any more money or let you borrow any more money. So what I'd like to do is, the voter rolls are public record. I would like to take the voter rolls and share them with the credit rating agencies. And I'm not talking about you credit check before you vote. I just want to share that public data with them and say, hey, are any of them people dead? And if they're dead, let's take them off the voter rolls. Because we got to get those folks off the voter rolls. And it's not, is there a vast conspiracy to steal the elections by dead people voting? I don't know. But if they're not on the voter roll, they can't do it. It's a vulnerability. Let's address the vulnerability. And people that are concerned about that, that's going to bring them back into the process. I'll just finish with this. I'm a historian, so you get a little history lesson, but our country, we kind of don't appreciate this all the time, but our country is unique in human history. There's never been a nation like the United States. Before the United States, a nation was a common people with a common ethnicity and a common language and a common religion. And if you were that ethnicity and that language, that religion, you were in this nation. If you spoke a different language, you're in that nation. Or if you had a different religion, you're in that nation. This is the first nation on earth in the history of the planet ever where you're not a nation, you're not a part of the nation because how you look or how you pray or how you talk. You're a part of the nation because you believe in a set of principles that we all agree we believe in. That we're all created equal under the law. That we all are endowed with certain inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But what holds us together as a nation, the connective tissue, the sinew that holds us all together, is that we get to pick our own leaders, and if we don't like them, we get to fire them at the ballot box.
Amen.
That is what holds us all together as a nation. And if we lose confidence in that, if we lose faith that our elections reflect our will, that we're actually able to pick our own leaders at the ballot box, we are going to fly apart. And I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. Our side, us Republicans, been a Republican my whole life, us Republicans, there's more of us that are concerned about our elections than them. But we've got a great opportunity here. Our guy just won. You know, our guy just won in 2024, and a lot of those folks that have been concerned about our elections, they're ready to take a second look. Like, hey, maybe they ain't all rigged. You know, maybe this is a redeemable system. This is a redeemable way to choose our leaders. So we've got an opportunity right now to bring a lot of those folks. I've been out knocking doors. I know a lot of you have been out knocking doors, and people say, I'm not going to vote, it's all rigged. We've got a chance to bring all those Republicans back. But if we're going to do that, we got to have a Secretary of State that's focused on restoring confidence in our elections. And I'll tell you, there are folks out there that aren't interested in restoring confidence. They're exploiting suspicion in our elections, either for profit. There are folks out there, they're selling blogs, they're selling merchandise, selling, their books about how it's all rigged, and they're making money off of it. And there are people that are profiting politically. They're using suspicion in our elections to advance their political careers. I'll tell you what, that is dangerous. That is very, very dangerous, because this is the DNA. This is what makes us Americans. This is what holds us all together, is our faith in our elections. So we need a Secretary of State that's going to be focused on restoring confidence, not tearing it down. And I'd be honored to serve you as your Secretary of State. Thank you. I would be happy to answer any questions. The problem's not getting me to talk, it's getting me to shut up. Yes, sir.
Is there any chance of just zeroing the voter rolls? Hit and reset?
Hit and reset.
After, say, the next presidential election?
Yeah.
The November, whatever,
Okay.
15th? All of them are wiped out. You got to re-register if you want to vote.
Yeah. So I'm gonna answer your question, and it's gonna take me a while to get back to your question, but I am gonna answer your question. So has anybody ever heard of the SAVE Act? So the SAVE Act is this thing that's bouncing around in Congress. It's got a lot of good ideas in it. Like you have to have proof of citizenship to vote, to register to vote. There's a lot of good stuff in there. That's my favorite part of it, though. But we've got to be very careful with the federal government monkeying around with their elections. Our founding fathers very wisely put elections in the hands of the state. I promise I'm getting to your question. They put elections in the hands of the state. And the reason they did that is because everything in the Constitution is a system of checks and balances. The executive versus the legislature. Supreme Court review of the legislature. But it's also states versus federal. Yeah. And they put the elections at the state so that the president or the legislature, the Congress, couldn't monkey with the rules to keep themselves in power forever. The National Voter Registration Act, I told you I was getting back to your question. The National Voter Registration Act tells us how to do voter registration and tells us how we have to maintain our voter rolls. And so while that law is in place, we can't zero out the voter rolls. We can't require proof of citizenship. You'll remember a few years ago, Chris Kobach, when he was Secretary of State, got a law passed, 2017, to require proof of citizenship. It got overturned in federal court because the MVRA didn't require it, so we couldn't add the requirement. So first of all, I'd say that's why we can't zero it out, because of that federal law. But second, I'd say let's repeal that law, and let's, instead of doing the SAVE Act out of Congress, which will have all kinds of unintended consequences, let's just, if we do away with the MVRA, we can just do a Kansas SAVE Act. So that's why.